Well, you asked to hear what Jamie Carragher had to say, and he joins us now from the gantry. Trent Alexander-Arnold said in his interview that for Arsenal, it was like facing red blurs at times. What did you make of the intensity, particularly in the second half from Liverpool?
Well, there's no doubt it was a different Liverpool second half. I think we all envisaged at the start of the game Liverpool would come flying out the blocks, but I was actually impressed with Arsenal, with how they dealt with Liverpool's press. At times they played out, at times they went long through the goalkeepers. There was a good mix, really, in the second half. I didn't feel like that mix was there, really, and it seemed to play right into Liverpool's hands. But also, I think Jurgen Klopp will have asked for more intensity, and the intensity wasn't so much lacking in that first half, but I thought Arsenal did really well. But I definitely think there was a change in the game, and that was Mikel Arteta and Jurgen Klopp going head-to-head on the side of the pitch. And that massively seemed to, for me, to turn the game, and the crowd and Liverpool, sort of the last 5 to 10 minutes of that first half, definitely lifted the whole place. I could feel it here when you commentate in the atmosphere, and then they get the goal as well. So I think then Liverpool, knowing what Arsenal were going to do, what they were about in that first half, could almost pinpoint them maybe a little bit more where they could press in that second half. And then that was Liverpool at the best for the first 20, 25 minutes of that second half. And you can't be too critical of Arsenal in that moment, and Liverpool are like that because no one can cope with Liverpool when they're like that at Anfield. I mentioned the stat in the game, Virgil van Dijk's never lost a Premier League game at home for Liverpool, so it shows you how tough it is to come here. And when Liverpool have got the bit between the teeth, it's virtually impossible to stop them.
With Chelsea winning in the way that they did against Leicester in the early kick-off, West Ham lost to Wolves, Manchester City to come tomorrow. Does this feel like a statement win for Liverpool?
Yeah, I think it's a really big win for Liverpool, I really do. I think most of us expected Liverpool to win this game. Graham mentioned it before the game, I did. But I think on the back of losing that game, having the international break and seeing what Chelsea are doing right now, and I think for Liverpool and Man City, they've just got to stay with Chelsea. They look devastating at this moment. I watched them again this morning, great performance. But at some stage this season, they will have a sticky period, there's no doubt. And what Liverpool and Man City can't afford is that gap to almost get to almost double figures at some stage. So going into this game, there was a little bit of a gap, and that's why it was imperative that Liverpool got the 3 points. City will feel the same tomorrow, and their experience of both clubs and both managers will know just stay on the coattails of Chelsea, and at some stage something will happen with Chelsea, because it always does at some stage. A team will have a blip.
We saw the performance and the result against Arsenal today, but is there more to get out of this Liverpool squad?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think Liverpool were at the best certainly in that first half. I think obviously they've got injury problems right now as well. Doesn't really affect the first team too much. That's probably 2 or 3 players away from Liverpool's best 11, but when you see obviously the bench and the players that they're bringing on, maybe isn't the quality of Chelsea or Manchester City, but we know that. We know Liverpool do it a different way. You see young Tyler Morton coming on. We see young players given a chance more at this club because of those reasons, and maybe the finances at the other 2 clubs who are going to challenge for the title are slightly different, so it was great to see that. But I just think right now Liverpool will be looking at Chelsea, obviously Man City as well, and they've just got to stay with them. They've been there before. Obviously, Thomas Tuchel and this Chelsea squad in terms of going for the Premier League title haven't, and they'll just hope their experience, as Graham will know, and the great Liverpool sides of the past did, they just reel other teams in eventually in that second half of the season. So that's why it's imperative that Liverpool, not just close the gap today because Chelsea won, but just kept kept Chelsea in sight.
And while you were preparing for this game, obviously some fantastic stories in the 3 o'clock kickoffs. Your old teammate, Steven Gerrard, had his first game in charge of Aston Villa, and he got the win. How big is that, particularly that it happened at home?
It was huge, the win. It really was. I was watching a lot of the game just before we came on air, and Brighton had the ball for long spells. And what they did, they stayed in the game, made it difficult for Brighton. I didn't actually see the goals towards the end, really, but it's massive just to get to that good start, and just for Aston Villa as well. Never mind Stevie's first game. They've lost 5 on the bounce, and you see the results with the other teams down the bottom as well. A lot of teams picked up points today, so it would have been not a great league table to look at if they'd have lost out on the game. So what they did is they hung in on the game. They played slightly different, I think, the setup that they played with as well, and a massive feeling that I've seen some of the pictures of the celebrations at the end. The atmosphere when that goals would have went in late on, and you see the reaction from Steve. He's very competitive on the pitch and certainly on the touchline as a manager as well.
Lots of celebrations from Watford, and they and Claudio Ranieri are going to be secondary in that story to what's happening at Manchester United with that 4-1 defeat. Lots has been said about Ole Gunnar Solskjær and his future at the club. What do you think now with reports that there is a board meeting taking place?
Well, I mean, what are they going to talk about? I mean, it's obvious. I don't think the board meeting would last too long. You know, it gets to the stage sometimes where it becomes untenable. And I was at this club when that happened to Roy Hodgson, where Liverpool is not really a sacking club as such in terms of managers, but he was in a job for maybe 6 months, and the atmosphere just changes and needs to be changed, not just for the club's good, but sometimes for the manager's good and the man in the hot seat. And that happened here. And I think the same right now for Ole Gunnar Solskjær. We all know sooner or later that Manchester United will have a new manager. But when it gets to this stage now, you actually look at Ole as an individual, as a human being, and just think it's not good for him to be the Manchester United manager right now. And I think there's a board meeting tonight. I think it's pretty obvious what's going to happen. But what I would say about in terms of setting a team up as a manager, I've not been a manager. Obviously, Graham in the studio has. But if you've got those players, and I don't care what anyone tells me, Manchester United have got quality players, you can't lose to Watford 4-1. You can't. So no matter how your managers set you up, or what his tactics are, or whatever it may be, whether he's got a presence in the dressing room, whether those players respect him, who knows? But those players and some of the performances and results that they've given this season are absolute disgrace, because that is one of the most expensive squads in Wales football, one of the highest paid squads in Wales football, and Watford are pretty awful. I've watched a lot of them this season, and to lose there 4-1 is absolutely disgusting and disgraceful by some of those players. The manager will go. We know that story's probably going to move on pretty quickly, but what some of those players' performances this season have been absolutely scandalous.